Well met. This has been Broad, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap. This is a pretty wild time for Marvel Snap, and to mark this occasion, we have a pretty wild episode here for you today, the Keep It Cosmo Roundtable. I call it a roundtable because we have 5 people instead of 3 or 4, but, you know, it's probably going to look a lot like a previous episode, but with more folks. I think that we wanted to get a lot of different perspectives on a few, I think, very topical topics as it relates to Marvel Snap, and I'm really excited to see how our conversation turns out. So I want to introduce our panel for this evening. First, we'll start with Born to be Cosmo host and Born to be Wild founder and host, Nate Wolfe.
Hey, yo.
Nate.
Thank you. Good to be back. Happy to be here with an all-star lineup tonight. So yeah, I'm really excited. Let's do it.
Awesome. Also joining us, Born to be Cosmo host and full-time content creator, ZombiesGoNomNom. Welcome, zombies.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Should be fun discussing the joys of Loki and everything surrounding it.
Indeed. So returning for, I think, the second time or third time, probably third, show fan favorite and also another full-time content creator, LeeAcer. Welcome, Lee. Always happy to have you on here.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to be back.
Kneel before LeeAcer.
Damn straight.
They may have nerfed Galactus, but they did not nerf Lee's voice. All right. And finally, last but not least, an exceptional guest, our Marvel Snap top of ladder grinder, deck brewer, and Marvel Snap Zone author, SafetyBlade. Welcome back. Happy to have you here. And happy that this is the night that you could be joining us, or I should say afternoon for you.
Yeah, happy afternoon from the future here on Sunday. Beautiful Sunday in Australia. No, thank you. Glad to be back. Glad I was able to make it.
Great. Well, since you're in the future, is there less Loki in the future for us?
Unfortunately, there's more.
There's more. All right. Well, let's dive in because Loki is actually the first thing that I wanted to talk about. I think it's the elephant in the room as it relates to the Marvel
alligator
metagame. The alligator. Yeah. So, just a little bit of context. Loki was released on September 4th as the season pass card when this season started, and it took about 3 days for any doubt to be left in anyone's mind that this would be a meta-defining card. And I think more than defining the meta, it's also warped the meta. It's pushed a lot of decks out and has created a very narrow game space and a polarized play experience. And this is true for both Ladder and Conquest. But fear not, on September 14th, there was an OTA balance update that dealt with Loki by nerfing the Collector, changing him from a 2/2 to a 2/0.
Problem solved.
We did it, Reddit.
Yeah. So as of today, at broadcast, September 23rd, Loki represents about 20% of the metagame on Ladder and is defining the meta. Snap streams are getting shorter and more infrequent, and it has been suggested that Loki is the most broken card since launch Zabu. Maybe not quite, but up there. And so Safety, as someone that has played a lot of Marvel Snap this month, do you believe that Loki is a healthy balance pass card that's good for the game? Or do you think that it's creating an experience that is suboptimal?
That's great for the game, isn't it? Like, it's a must-buy card. Actually excellent for the game. What are we talking about? But I'm going to try and be as concise as I can, because this discussion comes up all the time, and there's arguments for and against. So you can be like, it's not the highest win rate deck, etc., etc. But it doesn't really matter if it's the highest win rate deck. The problem is that Loki has completely changed what you can play and how you can play the game, and it's not really talking around the problem if you say it's anything else.
Yeah, I want to touch upon the data piece for a second, because a lot of individuals cite data as a means of making an argument as it relates to the game, and I suppose that's sound. But saying that Loki's win rate is depressed is not really a sound argument when you consider its play rate, right? And it's at 20%, and it's still sitting at a pretty respectable number. So I think that's very telling.
I want to start with that before I go on my tirade, so that people know that I'm aware of these things these arguments you can make. But I just think that it's completely changed, like, what you can play. Loki is a card which says if your deck has too much synergy, I get that synergy with -1 power. Ravonna is a great example right now. Like the Ravonna Renslave, she came out last month. We'd be complaining about Ravonna decks. Like, we would be complaining that these decks are too strong, etc. But you just can't play them. Someone else can play a free power card and take 4 to 5 of them cards from you cheaper. It's just like, it changes what you can play. So then what happens is everyone starts playing ramp decks or decks where they can't take all your cards and play them, and the meta becomes play these really linear decks against each other. I think one point, which I'm surprised no one's commented on this that often, but like in one of the balance patch notes, I think it was the collector balance patch, they actually said themselves the meta has evolved into linear decks. And I was like, you're actually kidding me. Like, your comment to why Loki shouldn't be changed, the meta evolved to fight against Loki by changing to linear decks.
But Shang-Chi is gone. It must be a good thing, right? That's kind of what they were implying. It's crazy.
But I gotta bring myself back before I just laugh as my argument, because that's not really an argument. But he just changes what can happen entirely. And on top of all that, I strongly believe the best deck in the game is still Loki deck. Just that it is a harder deck to play than we've seen before. So Zabu, comparing to Zabu is not the same, because Zabu was a really easy deck to play. It was really simple. You drew Zabu, you had 4 or 5 4-drops in your deck, which all synergized to some degree and could be played. All of them could be played before the end of the game, so you snap every time. Loki is a little bit more difficult than that, but as you get better at playing Loki decks, you realize just like how much stronger it is than everything else. And you play Loki at different times based on what you're playing against, and even Galactus decks like don't play well into it. If you know like a Sandman is coming or a Wave is going to come, you play Loki on free. You've suddenly got a 5-cost version of one of their 6-drops, what you just play. Like, it's just, the deck is just better at everything in Marvel Snap.
Yeah, I imagine, I never actually thought of this before, but I haven't played the deck a whole lot, but I imagine the information that you gather in Conquest is quite advantageous as well for that series of games.
Yes, most of my infinite tickets this month have been with a Loki Galactus deck, which just had Snow Guard and Loki in it. That's it. So,
yep.
It was a joke. It was an on-stream joke. I made that deck as a joke, and then I posted on Twitter basically as a joke. But I've actually played it far too much and won multiple infinity tickets with that deck. It's basically just playing Snow Guard and Loki on free. That's it. Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah, so you really kind of brought an interesting point up about the meta narrowing. So I think that really it's decks that go tall that kind of make it clunky for Loki. So you've got high Evo with 3 1-drops, various builds of that, but they all contain, the 3 1-drops, Cyclops and Hulk, which are quite strong. Also,
but they don't get the good cards, right? And that's part of it, right? Is like they don't get the good Cyclops or the good Hulk, or the like 2 people playing Thanos. They don't get your stones, which in that deck that's probably a bit of an upside rather than a downside.
Yeah, Thanos is terrible. Thanos is really terrible into Loki.
So there's that deck you can play. You can play Ramp. Although I think that's kind of dropped off, but it's still playable, so we'll add it in there, right? So you play cards like Wave and Electro and cheat out big boys and try to get value with Odin. And, kind of some variation of like move with like a wave top end. Not a whole lot. You know, anything else will just really lose into Loki. So I know that's been causing people to play less. Zombies, I know that you've been streaming a lot less. Or you've been streaming other games more frequently. Maybe that would be a better way of putting it. I mean, like, is it as narrow for you as I've described? Because I would imagine that you're not enjoying Snap if you're playing other games like Hollow Knight.
Yes. Yeah, it's just not been very fun. It's a very sharp contrast because I think we're coming from one of the better metas in Snap. Like, I think there was a lot of praise for the meta we had last month, a lot of variety. Yes, it was like a little annoying when like the Brood Patriot deck became like super duper common, but I don't think it's even in the same like world as what we're seeing right now. But generally there was a lot of variety and stuff you could play. There were a lot of like top tier decks. People played a lot of different stuff. And I think it was pretty widely celebrated as one of the more diverse metas the game has had in a while. And it didn't really feel like there was, you know, one or two decks that were a mile ahead of the pack, so to speak. And it was interesting. Like, the decks were different. They weren't just all running like the same strongest cards, right? And I think that's what was very appealing about it. And now Loki just flipped it on its head because, like Safety mentioned, it fundamentally changes how you build decks. And Ravona's been a great example of this because, like, I wanted to play a Ravona deck. I think the cards seem cool. I wanted to use her. And I liked the idea of building around her and the restriction and whatnot. It's like, oh, you get like a Sarah-like effect, but for only specific cards. You have to build your deck in a way. And with the change we got to Rock Slide recently, now you can build like a Zabu-less Darkhawk deck. And it's pretty cool. I was excited for that. And then that excitement goes to zero when you realize you made the mistake of putting Iron Man in your deck, and your opponent just gets a gets a 4-man Iron Man, which is, you have to build your whole Ravona deck around that, right?
Yeah.
And they just get it for free, or at the same reduction that you're trying to go through some hoops to get, if not better, right?
Energy 5 now.
Yeah. Like, and if they have Quinjet, it's literally just better than your deck. And it's just like, it's ridiculous. Like, I feel really punished for trying to like build my deck in a way that's interesting, or like trying to build what I would think is normally a strong deck. And that's crazy to me. That's like, actually, I don't even really have like words for how crazy that is to me. That seems like the antithesis of what you would want to do in a card game, punishing people for trying to like think differently or try something different with the deck because your opponent just gets to do it better than you. Like, I really don't know what they're thinking.
This polarized meta certainly presents itself at let's say the top of the ladder, you know, where high MMR players such as yourself and SafetyBlade play. I think that this narrowing is quite pervasive because I tend to occupy, you know, now that we see our MMRs, you know, a lower section, and it's as narrow and homogenized as you've described. I'm curious, Lee, you've been playing quite a bit this week for your Monday to Thursday stream. What has your experience been like? Is it similar to what Safety and Zombies describe, or does it deviate?
It's actually kind of weird. At the beginning of this season, obviously I was seeing a flood of Loki, but the more that I was playing and the more that I was climbing, I was seeing a lot more Shuri, funny enough. So I didn't have exactly the same experience. Now, that's not to say that I didn't see Loki at all. I did see him a fair bit, and when I was playing into those, especially with Alioth and Galactus, the opponent could just turn the game around and just do what I was trying to do, but earlier. So yeah, it was odd playing against Loki in some instances, but I think I fared pretty well overall.
And you were climbing mainly with the Galactus ramp, right?
So that's mainly one of the decks. That, yeah. So I started with the Loki deck just to try it out, and it was fun for like, you know, a couple of days, but then it just got very tiring, especially because like it was the first, I think, 2 days that I was playing it was nonstop mirrors.
Yeah.
And it was the mirror is awful. Really annoying. And then any excitement that I had for Loki coming out just died. I had no interest in playing it. didn't want to climb with it. I was just like, well, everyone's doing this. I don't want to do this.
Plus, the mirrors are awful because a lot of times, like if you have similar starts, it turns into a game of, oh hey, who generated Loki off the Loki more times?
That's
right.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's actually crazy.
The mirrors were just like, it was a race of who was gonna get Quinjet Collector Loki first, and that's all it was. So it was just very tiring, and it was very unfun after the first couple like novel days that you had with the card, in my opinion. So
yeah.
So I chose to play Galactus instead.
Well, at least you had that option. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I have not played one game of Loki. I watched you play Zombies the first day. I didn't play.
None?
And
wow.
My main was made up. I haven't touched it. I haven't even like frame broken the card. So Nate, you were playing a lot of Black Panther this week. Oh wait, that was that Lego set you were building.
You can see it behind me. Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's so awesome.
Next to Thor's
next to yeah.
It's great.
I hit Infinite with the Loki deck. But the problem is like I didn't want to, but nothing else felt good. Like it feels crappy getting smacked in the face with your own like giant Hulk, except they can play it a turn earlier than you. You know, like what is that? And it was like, all right, well, I'm getting tired of losing against this, so I'll just play it. I ran Loki up until I hit like, I don't know, the mid 80s, and I was like, oh, this is getting kind of boring. I'll try something different. I tried High Evo, I tried some Bounds, I tried some Destroy, whatever. I tried some Galactus, and I just kept losing to the Loki decks. And I was like, all right, forget it. I'll just swap back and like quick sail up to Infinite. And it was like, all right, this is dumb, but it's making the game less enjoyable. I mean, I'm doing my daily quest because I want the credits and stuff, but like I have no really desire to grind ladder or conquest or anything because it's just Loki everywhere, and it's getting a little old, and by a little I mean a lot.
Yeah, so I think that to surmise, it sounds like everyone's kind of unhappy with Loki. I think that I think that there's a plurality of a consensus around that. While maybe some people enjoy it, others don't. That's subjective. The power level is certainly an outlier. And I think that we all agree that at a certain point, the card will have to be further adjusted outside of that side grade that the collector got, because the power output's still insane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at a 3/5, like it's way overstated. And then it's not even the collector. It's getting to play your opponent's deck and all its synergies at a much reduced cost. So you can just
while still having a good early game too. Like their early game, they run like some of the best early game stuff in Snap right now, right? Like you have Angela, you have Kitty, you have Snowguard. It's just it's a very effective early game.
What world are we living in where Snowguard's one of the best cards in the game? Oh my god.
It's so funny, but it's Safety, you've got to feel pretty vindicated, right? Like
yeah.
You were the Snowguard truther before Snowguard was a good card or viewed as a good card.
No, guys, every card is good because they'll eventually adjust them.
Yeah.
Well, then I've got hope for my boy Hellcow.
Yep.
Or girl, I should say. Oops.
Snowguard was better before in a way because no one expected it and could do something with it back then. Now it's just like one of the best cards in the game, so it's a bit boring.
It's just an insane value generator and disruptor. It's so good.
Well, I think Snowguard will be good after Loki gets adjusted in whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Whatever they do to this card.
I agree.
I super agree. I think Snowguard would be good in a world where Loki doesn't even exist. Like it would just be played as a good one drop that generates you 2 drops for a nice little curve out. It's just good.
So, funny enough, we're talking about Loki being adjusted like it's a sure thing. Well, there was another card that released this month that saw a little bit of a splash, Alioth. And that was released on the 11th, a week after the season started. And, I don't think there was a lot of hype for Alioth. It was kind of the lousy Series 5 card with the 6 cost.
I was excited for it.
Yeah, it was like, it almost seemed like it was not like certain people were excited for it, but I think just like generally from a power level perspective, it wasn't that exciting.
It's the Galactus truthers.
Yeah, well, it appeals to that, and I think that that's something that we should keep in mind as we have this discussion. I think that Alioth exceeded all of our expectations, and elevated many decks due to how Loki matches into decks that would like to run Alioth, and the types of decks that Loki pushes out of the metagame that makes this kind of get ahead play Alioth strategy better. And you know what's funny is that Lee mentioned this playing Alioth Galactus. Alioth kind of brought Galactus back to the center of the conversation. I don't think that Galactus was dominant, but it was in a dominant deck archetype as kind of like a plan B win condition. And well, astonishingly, in the midst of Loki, you know, just casually being the most broken card in the game ever, perhaps, I almost feel like there are more calls to nerf Alioth and Galactus than there are for Loki.
There are a lot of people mad about Alioth.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So I know, Lee, that you were very excited for Alioth even before we realized it was good. So too are you, Nate. Credit where credit's due. And you're also an avowed Galactus enjoyer. You've hit Infinite this month with Alioth Galactus. And you know, I am indifferent to Galactus. I find the hate around Galactus is, well, I don't quite understand it. So why do you enjoy it so much, and why do you think people hate it so much?
I can't speak to, like, I can't really pinpoint why I like it. It's just there's something about the card, the animation, playing it, throwing people off, I guess, when they're not expecting it. And it's just like, you've spent all this time building this, and then I can just take it all away and then put the game into my court. So I think that's like probably the best way to describe it. I can't really pinpoint an exact reason why. He's just a fun card. That's just the way I like to play the game. I think it's fun.
Sure.
It's a different way to win, right? Like, I think that's the big thing, and I think you kind of hit a nail on the head there. Like, that's why people really like it and really hate it, because you like it because it gives you a different thing to aim for other than win 2 out of 3 locations. You set things up right, you just have to win the one. And then on the flip side, that's why a lot of people hate it, is because a lot of people are like, well, I signed up to winning 2 out of 3, and now I only have to fight for 1, and I don't like it, and I'm big mad about it.
Yeah. And
so are you saying that people dislike it because it invalidates their game plan that they might have executed?
Yeah, that, and it invalidates their expectation of like what they're going into, right?
But isn't that every deck? Like, if someone Shang-Chi's your 9-drop, or Cosmo's preventing you from having the game revealing on reveal, like it may be a little bit visually different, but yeah, like, isn't it the same?
I think experience-wise, like, people don't see it that way. Like, I don't mind it personally. I didn't even really like Galactus all that much, but like, the amount people dislike it made me like it out of spite. At a point.
Yeah, oh yeah, me too, 100%. Yeah, I just don't understand it, and it really, I have a real hard time. I think that normally, like, it wouldn't bother me as much as it does right now, but in the broader discourse of Loki, like, I just don't understand why it almost feels like the next OTA. Like, I almost expect them to change Alioth or Chavez, America Chavez, over Loki, and that's gonna make, I think, well, the 5 of us upset.
People like to be mad about stuff, though, and if it wasn't this, they'd be mad about something else, because that's what sells. Like, that's what clicks, you know, gets people to click on their videos and their content, and it's like there needs to be something to complain about. And I can't tell you how many, like, we saw like things on Twitter over this week, people calling to nerf America Chavez, like you said, oh, the win rate's too, or the play rate is way too high. And then Glenn saying like, yeah, we're watching it, and people complaining about Galactus left and right all week. Like, the card, I'm Galactus is like, was my favorite card, and they murdered it. I was so sad, and I still enjoy it, but so I'm right there with Lee. Galactus truther all the way, but like, seeing people complain about the card, like, man, it's not even good right now.
I just don't understand it myself, especially like after, like, post nerf Galactus, he's not as good as people think he is. You can still very easily lose. You can also, if you see the line, like, you can still see the lines of when Galactus is going to come out. You know, so
it's very telegraphed still. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I don't understand the hate for it, but people just get really unhinged when you mention Galactus. Just like, you don't say that name in my presence because I will burn your house down. You know, like it's crazy. And I said something the other day in stream, and I said I was playing I can't remember the location, but a Cosmo came out and I was like, oh, super fun card, very sarcastically, right? Because it kind of killed my whole game plan.
Right.
And so whatever, I was moving on, and then I just have a guy who just flamed me. He's like, "Oh, this is like really rich coming from a guy playing Galactus." I'm like,
get out of here! Like,
hello?
Then don't watch the stream. I mean, come on.
I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah. Did you ban them, Lee?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good.
Justice.
I'm going to say something a bit horrible. I think Alioth isn't actually that good a card. A hot take, but I don't think
very
it's
mid.
that good a card.
It's not nearly as good as people say.
I stand by my immediate reaction on the card. It's actually very medium. I was playing Galactus the day before it came out, and I was having just as much success as the day afterwards. The card is where it's at. It's got nothing to do with Alioth, why it got better. It's just people feel more comfortable playing it now because they have this card that goes F you. But it's actually no different to having Shang-Chi, Enchantress, all them sort of cards.
Well, isn't Alioth good right now because the nature of the way that Loki kind of warps the game? You don't want to throw priority. You want to have priority, and when you're holding priority, and you're all, like, it's like a leader style card, I suppose.
A lot of people have been making that comparison, and I find it really funny because it's like, did we play with the old did you play with the old leader?
I mean, I'm talking about the current state leader. Old leader was
I've seen people compare it to old leader, and like the only comparison there is like what you said, where it incentivizes being ahead, right? And like there, sure, yes,
old leader was all 3 lanes. This is still only 1.
That's what I'm saying, and a lot of people don't acknowledge that. A lot of people are like, no, it's an I win button. You get ahead, and then you play it, and then you win. It's like you still have 2 other lanes to fight for, and then in the case of Galactus, if Galactus goes off and you don't have like a really nice potential way to win that game, like just leave. Like most of the time Galactus isn't going off on turn 6, but I legitimately think people's irrational hatred towards Galactus results in them staying in games more because they really, really want to beat it because of how much they hate it. And that is like giving the Galactus players more wins and more cubes because they stay in and then they get clouded and they're like, oh, this new card's BS. It's not balanced. They need to nerf it. It's like, you probably would have lost either way. Like Alioth made it a bit better because now you can't like Shang them, right? Because Galactus would have priority and they play null or death, and then you could Shang them and win. And now it's a little different, but like it's really not that different.
No, but
because you should expect it, right?
I want to bring up
makes the deck better.
Yeah, let me bring up one quick point though, like from a Galactus player perspective, right? And Lee, let me know your thoughts on this. But I think when I was playing a lot of Galactus, like you almost wanted to throw Prio on the last turn because you don't want to lose to Shang-Chi, because if I drop my null and my death and they play Shang-Chi, I just lose. But now you want the priority because then Alioth is like, well, we don't care. Like you play whatever you want and my Alioth will just eat your whatever.
Stay ahead.
And so it changes the way, like the game plan for sure.
It also mitigates that Galactus is now a 7 instead of a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, it's like it's nice. Before that was a downside, right? Because like you'd be ahead and then you get shanged, and now it's like that's why it's been so good in ramp, right? Because if you cheated out on 4 with the wave, you play another big thing on 5. A lot of times, like Devil Dino or whatever other 5-drop you have, and usually you'll have a decent bit of power, and then you close with Alioth. Or maybe if you have Electro out, you go Alioth into Odin.
Yeah, there's some shenanigans, or like Arnim Zola on the Alioth is a little nasty, but
it's so bad though.
I know, I agree.
Try and do that. It's so bad.
Like, it is.
I thought that'd be funny, and it is funny. But it's like at that point you could be Zolaing almost any other 6-drop, and you'd probably still win.
It's a meme. It's a meme. For
sure, a meme.
It's a funny one.
It is.
I'll tell you what, though, I wasn't gonna buy Alioth, and you all kind of convinced me, and I'm glad that I did get it. But I haven't even been really playing with it. I experimented with it in the ramp deck. I stopped playing it because I feel like that deck is so easy to target that people will do so. Yeah, I kind of agree with Safety. I don't think it's a bad card, but like I don't think it's one that I think would be appropriate for the center of Nerf discourse.
It's a feels bad card. That's what it is. It's card, because 100%. And that's why it goes hand in hand with Galactus. And I think that it makes people feel the feelings that they felt with Galactus. Is you feel the same because whatever you played at regardless of location just got invalidated, and then you feel bad as a player. It's one that you feel wonderful when you do it to somebody, and you feel horrible when somebody does it to you. And because people like. And now they're screaming to nerf the card. And again, it's not because it's good; it's because it made me feel bad, and that is the world that we live in.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna ask you all a question, and we're gonna take a friendly wager here. So we're broadcasting this on September 23rd, and 24th for those in the future. The next OTA is going to be on September 28th, next Thursday. So I believe that we're going to see some kind of adjustment to either Evo or Alioth before, and they're not going to do a thing for Loki until next month. Who agrees with this?
I hate to say it, but I think that they'll hit a number of things before they hit Loki, because I even saw the thing from the Snap Discord where they're talking, well, Loki's good, but it's like not busted. Like, bro, what?
Because it warped the meta. It's still 20%. Like, here's the thing that kills me. It's still 20% play rate. They murdered Galactus because it had a 10% play rate. So.
It's basically like old Shuri levels, right? Like,
do they wait until
old Shuri levels?
They wait until like it's not the season pass card anymore?
Oh, 100%. Like I would bet the farm
That's
on
the bet, basically.
The Loki will not be directly adjusted until at least October. And even then, I think it'll be like mid-October or something. It'll be as soon as he's invalidating other new cards they're trying to release. And don't forget, they have to give people time to buy Mobius to effectively try and counter it, when I don't think it's going to be as great of a counter as people are suggesting. And it's also, even if Loki does go down in play rate and get a bit worse because of Mobius is going to have a very similar effect of pushing the metagame into a very narrow direction.
So let's segue there. So
stuff.
I think that so Mobius is going to be releasing in 2 days on Monday, and I think that this card is going to do to the metagame what Loki did to the metagame, and I don't know in what way, but what I do know is that it's going to take us down a very dark path. So allow me to paint this picture. Zombies, we're playing a game of the Marvel Snap card game. You play the card Mobius. So now my cards cannot be discounted. However, I now play my Mobius, so your cards can't be discounted. Now you counter my counter by playing Rogue, stealing my Mobius, so now you have 2 and I have 0. Denying me my counter, I now counter your counter by playing Super Scroll.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not even
Scroll.
Rogue is the only.
That's where it is.
Rogue is the only counter, right? Because, like, I mean, I guess Scroll counters it, but not in the same way Rogue does, right? Because, like, if you Rogue their Mobius, you get the effect, and they don't. Whereas if, like, you both have a Mobius effect, just everything is base cost. Nothing can cost less with both, right? It's not like Daredevil where they, like, cancel out. It's just nothing can cost more, but nothing can cost less. It's just base fair Marvel Snap only.
And just in case anyone listening is wondering, this has been confirmed multiple times. Wave does not override Mobius, so in effect, Wave will make your cards cheaper but not more expensive, and vice versa for your opponent. And if you both have Mobius out, Wave does nothing, I suppose.
Yeah, Wave just Wave does do something with Mobius out. It's if you have Mobius, well, I guess it depends.
If you both have Mobius out, it does nothing. I said, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then that is correct. It's just really weird, and also I see so many people are like, oh well, this is good. There are too many wave decks. This will really take wave down a peg, and it's like, no, it won't. The people are gonna run Mobius with wave because you go Mobius into wave, and then you cheat out a big thing, and your opponent can only play a 4-cost card or a cheaper thing that costs 4, and I mean, Galactus haters are going to be in shambles because Galactus is going to probably run Mobius because then they can't play a big thing to stop your thing. Like they're all going to run it.
Mobius. Yes.
He's not going to stay. He's not going to stay at 3-cost in my mind. The fact that you can go Mobius wave on turn 5 is hilarious and is. I'm honestly scared, and I could totally see them being like, "Well, we don't want to adjust Mobius, so wave costs 4 now." You know, she makes cards cost 4. We're gonna make her a 4-mana 4/4, just to stop this. And God, that feels like something they would do.
Yeah.
This is the first time. It's kind of crazy this month because I feel like they're pitting the players against each other because it's like, hey, you gotta get Loki because it's the pass card and it's busted. It's overstated and it does crazy things. Oh, well, now you have to buy Ravonna because she like messes with the Loki stuff, right? Or like whatever.
Nobody has to buy Ravonna.
Sorry, Mobius. Like you gotta buy Mobius, right? Because Mobius invalidates the Loki, so you gotta buy this one. Now you gotta buy this one to beat that one, and it's like, wait a minute, like. I don't know. It feels strange to me. I feel like we're getting played here.
They're selling the solution for the problem they created.
Yeah. I know,
but in this case they're giving us gasoline instead of like a fire hydrant and or a fire extinguisher because I don't think Mobius is gonna solve the Loki problem. I think it's gonna make the Loki problem worse. I think that Mobius slots into the Loki deck free and makes wave, which is it's not a counter, it's kind of like a very soft check but a very important one, goes away, right? And so now everyone else is going to run Mobius and now the decks get further diluted and I just I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but Walt, like I agree with you, create the problem, sell the solution, like, but that's so dirty. And I don't even know, like, I don't know that it's a solution. The whole thing is funky.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a solution.
No, I don't think it is, but people are going to try it because Loki is so
everyone's going to buy Mobius
pervasive that you have to, right?
But guys, they didn't sell them as a Series 5, so it's not that bad. Quit complaining.
You know what? I actually
Mobius was a Series 5, there would be riots. There'd be riots.
I'm surprised it's not because they've released so many as Series 5 lately.
Yeah.
I think the thing what gets me is that this is anti-fun releasing Mobius anyway. Like I purposely want it to be bad, and I know it's not. But it's like the anti of all the things which are supposed to be good in Snap and supposed to be fun in Snap. You've released this card which is really cheap to play, which takes away a lot of that, and will just create more of these linear decks that people complain about. And why are people excited about this coming out? I don't understand why anyone is excited about this coming out.
Because they're hoping it fixes the Loki issue, and like we said, it's not going to. But like that's their hope. I think
the arguments that it's going to counter the Sarah and all these things. There was a
who even plays Sarah anymore?
It has a sub 50% win rate because it folds so hard to Loki. The only thing I'm excited for is this variant that we have on screen.
It's Owen Wilson and the alligator. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. But the card is I don't know. I think that people are going to be in for another shock, and I wonder if this is a blessing in disguise because perhaps this is finally what jolts a plurality of Marvel Snap gamers to recognize the problem for what it is, and advocate for the change that I think we all believe needs to happen, which is, Loki being adjusted and Mobius. being mechanically changed to not override effects like wave or something else. I mean,
or just not be so effectively costed. Like, why are you giving this the premier two drop stat line when you're also giving it one of the strongest like ongoing effects we've ever seen? Like, why is this card a 2/3? It's like when Loki was a 3/5. It's like, what is with these stats? Like, is there not a downside to? Should there not be a downside to playing such a powerful effect? Like, Black Widow is a 2/1, and like,
and Ravon is a 3/3. Well.
Yeah, it's very strange to see how they do this. I don't know.
It's been very clear the last few months where they've pushed power into certain cards which are either getting sold or something, and it's starting to challenge whether you even think the game can be anything other than just a for fun card game. So it's not. I don't see how a 2/3 this counts as it should be 3 power. I don't see why it's 2 energy. It could be 4 energy. Like, it's actually insane. We'll see.
I can hypothesize that they believe that this is an effect that needs to come out early in order to be impactful. That's the only reasoning I can think of. That it doesn't venture into the more cynical thoughts that we might be tempted to indulge in.
I suppose on the other side of things as well, like, there's more likely you can counter it at 2 energy, but I've always been someone who's against playing counters for your counters.
It just gets really like weird, right? Like, and it becomes a lot less fun because at that point you're just kind of flipping coins and guessing how deep in the tank they go, and truthfully it's just not very fun, or even that. I mean, sometimes in rare situations it can be fun to try and like guess, like, hey, my opponent thinks I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna do this instead. That can be fun, but it's not fun when that's happening every single game, right? Like, you want that to be sparing. You don't want it to be the norm, because then it just divulges into coin flips. It's like it's a 50-50. Did they go deeper than me, or do I go like one level lower?
It's that itchy and scratchy gif that we were showing before, the gun battle, right? Like, it's just, it's at some point the escalation has to stop. And it's Super Skrull. Super Skrull is the thing that ends the world. Like,
Super Skrull and Rogue,
yeah. When Super Skrull becomes a serious part of the conversation, I feel that's when we were truly lost.
I remember when that happened with in the Patriot meta.
Yeah, when Patriot was the quest and everyone was running Super Skrull, or like Luke Cage in high Evo meta. That's what I think exactly how this. We've seen how this goes before with a different deck, but I think the pattern's going to be
so
exactly
much more
the same.
offensive than Luke Cage.
Oh, it is.
It's more offensive.
It's much more offensive, but the concept is the same, right?
Yes.
Like, high Evo is the best deck, so people run Luke Cage even in their high Evo decks to counter the mirror, right? And then other high Evo decks start running it too, and then somebody has the genius thought of, well, instead of putting Luke Cage in my deck, if everyone else is running it, I'll just run Rogue, and I'll not only get a Luke Cage, but I'll take theirs away from them. And that is a point when you know your meta is not in a healthy spot, and then they're going to do the exact same thing they did with high Evo, where they tell us, hey guys, we're keeping an eye on it, but it's not really an outlier right now, it's fine. Expect like a vague copy paste of what they said in the first OTA, where it's like, we know Loki's really popular, in fact he's one of the most popular archetypes ever in the history of the game, but his stats aren't looking that crazy right now. And then they're going to surprise Pikachu in like 3 weeks when they're like, well, it turns out Loki's popularity is a bit higher than we'd like, and it's, you know, it's pushing the metagame.
Turns out we're not selling Loki anymore,
with.
So
yeah, it's just like, I think that's exactly how this is going to go. It's literally a repeat. It's more offensive than the high Evo stuff, but in terms of what's going to happen, it feels like the same thing. It's going to push a Rogue meta, and then they're going to say it's fine next week, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, they're going to nerf it.
All right, so up and down, starting with Lee. Are you buying Mobius or opening up caches to open Mobius?
I'm going to, yeah.
Okay, so that's one for opening. Are you going to use tokens, or are you going to open up caches?
No, unfortunately, tokens don't exist in my world, so Spotlight Cache it is.
Spotlight Cache for Mobius. Nate, are you going to be acquiring Mobius, and if so, how?
Absolutely. Tokens. It's not even a question. No, you have to.
All right, we're two for two. One Spotlight, one tokens. Mr. Blade, Mobius, yay or nay?
I'll be buying it within about 5 seconds of it coming out.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. Tokens or spotlights?
With tokens, because I have a full collection gamer, so yeah.
I don't have many, but you have to take advantage of the 3K ones, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
that's the
100%.
optimal way to do it.
I think I
4.
have like 6K tokens, 7K tokens right now, and like 5 collector's caches, or 5 or 6. And so I'm like, I'm okay at the moment, but I'll use my 3K.
All right, and zombies.
Yeah, of course. I'm using tokens. I'm still sitting on a large pile, and
I don't want to hear about how many tokens you have. How many tokens do you have?
50K.
Like 48K. Hey, 48. All right.
48.
I took a little bit of a blow from buying Ravona, and I have to wait for more variants to get my 2K stipient thing back.
Where I only have 48K tokens.
Yeah, really.
48K, get it right. But yeah, I'm not really interested in a lot of the spotlight caches for this month, or even really next month. A lot of cool cards, but just not. The spotlights are weird, where it's like the more cards you have, I find generally the less appealing a lot of spotlights are. And then it's like, well, the variants are cool, but once you get like one good spotlight variant, like, are you really going to go chasing after another? I haven't felt the need to. Like, it's just like, you get one, you're happy with it. And that's one thing I'm a little, we can save this topic for like another time, but I'm a little concerned about with the spotlight system that I think they've overlooked is if they keep the same pool of cards in the spotlights, like we've been seeing them do, and not rotate stuff out, well, when you see Darkhawk for the 5th time and you already have your favorite Darkhawk variant, it gets... A lot of people are already unhappy when they get a variant instead of a card. But think about how much more unhappy you're going to be if you get a variant for a card you already have your favorite or you already have a spotlight variant for, and you know you're not going to use it, and it burned one of your $50 boxes.
So I want to double click on that. But before we do, just to tie off, I also will be acquiring Mobius with tokens. I have, I think, 14,000. So after this conversation, 5 for 5, yay on Mobius. And everyone's using tokens. The only reasons why Lee is not is because Lee doesn't have the tokens. And to kind of revisit what you were saying, Zombies, what you're saying is so valid. This is why I'm not opening up my reserves, because the system will change. It's already changed multiple times. It's going to have to change again. They're going to have to do something because it is not on a sustainable trajectory, right? And I'm not even saying because it's not sustainable because it's not expensive. It's just not a sustainable way of delivering content without having the repeating, like you said.
Be careful, they'll start handing out silver tickets instead of gold ones.
Can you imagine?
I'm willing to take.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Can we imagine just for 1 second? Spotlight Cache New Edition. Now, 1 in every 4 Spotlight Caches will have an infinity ticket.
Oh god, no.
Oh, no. Oh,
I'm giving them ideas.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, what have you done? But I think it's really, really telling that here we are, we're all getting the card.
You have to get the card.
What is the last? Yeah, what was the last card we were unanimous on like this?
Alioth?
No, I came around reluctantly, so that doesn't count.
You still bought it.
No, it doesn't count. Okay, I suppose. But no, like when were we all, before the card came out, before we saw it in action, kind of just declared it a must-have?
Like new releases?
Yeah.
Wasn't it High Evo?
Iron Lad?
Probably High Evo.
Probably High Evo.
Lad was a big one. Evo was a big one. Were there any other really big ones after that? I mean, there were impactful ones, but in terms of like ones everyone wanted.
Yeah.
Safety and I were the Silk Truthers.
I
was a Silk Truther.
I got it unreleased too.
Yeah, I did too, actually. I really wanted all of the spider cards, and most of them turned out to suck. And that, like, it ate all of my like leftover reserves and tokens and all of that, and then most of them are still bad.
I know
X-23, yeah, Legion maybe.
Legion was one where like people weren't hyped leading up to it, but within like the first 24 hours, everyone was like, "All right." Yeah,
I was a few weeks till I got Legion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Silk, even though I got it in release, it doesn't count because I didn't have faith in it. I just wanted it because it was cool.
Most people didn't buy Silk either. Yeah, it's funny. If you think about it, there really haven't been a whole ton of like I think X-23 like had such hype behind it that a ton of people bought it, and it was a very weird situation where a lot of people expected it to like fundamentally change how Destroy works rather than just being a nice addition to the deck.
It made Destroy much better though.
It did, but like I think people were expecting the card to do things that it was never going to do. Like it did improve Destroy, and I think it's a great addition into it. But like Destroy's game plan is still the game plan it previously had. It's just now you have a bit more flexible lines because of the extra mana you get from X-23. But it didn't like fundamentally change how like the deck is played or how you're trying to win. And I think like there was too much hype placed on the card for like this is going to be the thing that makes Destroy broken, and it didn't. And so a lot of people were like, oh, it's bad or mid. And I'm like, no, I think the card itself is actually very good. It's just it's not enough to propel Destroy like up a whole tier or something. It's just a nice addition to make your deck, flow a bit better. And that's fine. Well, there are a lot of cards like that, and I think cards like that are good. Like it's nice when they can find a relatively like balanced power level where it's like a card sees play, it has uses, but it's not the defining piece of a tier 1 or a tier 0 deck, and it doesn't show up in every deck. I think it's great when we have cards that have specific homes and don't see play in everything. Like you want some Jeffs, but you don't want every card to be a Jeff, right?
Well, here's something to ponder about Mobius. Mobius is a first, I believe, insofar as that it is a card that we're all acquiring day one that we're not looking forward to have in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it's just dangerous. It's so dangerous. And I really liked what Safety said about it, where it's like what it's doing is really anti-fun a lot of the time. Like the reason people like, Sarah or Wave or any of these other cost reduction cards is because it allows you to explore a interesting design space of like, what if these cards cost less or whatever, and I got to do more things than I'm typically able to do. But there's a trade-off for it, right? Like in Sarah, if you don't try your Sarah, your deck's not looking as hot. Or if they wave you on the Sarah turn, like there are ways around it, and that's important. But there was a great image shared by Drewberry which showed like all the things that get hit by Mobius, and looking at that list, like I just was sad. Like so just to name a few big meta relevant, and it's not even being meta relevant necessarily, it's being like archetype relevant, because like in Snap you want decks, not individual cards, right? Like when you're building out your Snap collection, that's like a common piece of advice is like, don't buy one card because you think it's cool or whatever, but go for like completing a deck, because you'll probably have a better time. And then just to name a few of the things that Mobius shuts down, we have Death, Sarah, Miles, Beast, Mr. Negative, Zabu, Swarm for discard, Loki
really?
And Quinjet.
It works on Swarm? Doesn't
it works on everything
get
that
replaced with a
no, it's
with a zero cost version of itself,
it
reduced?
Still has the little symbol where it's reduced. It's just another copy of Swarm, except it costs 0. Okay. It doesn't actually change the base cost of the card. And it's the same with Mr. Negative. A lot of people are confused about that. Well, negative flips. Well, it doesn't matter. Your thing will still have that power, but it's gonna have the original cost. Ravona for the 2 people, or I guess.
Well, you had your week with Ravona. It's enough time.
Yeah, we had our week with Ravona getting clowned by Loki, and next week she gets clowned by the other card. It's such an inverse of the show, right? Whereas Ravona, she's kind of laying down the law in the Loki show, and she's getting kind of clowned by Loki and Mobius in the game. But there's just so many cards that really get just completely invalidated, and it's gonna be, I think, almost like a rogue level of feeling where it's like, okay, cool, and maybe even close to like a Galactus level feeling for some people of my opponent played this card and now my deck doesn't work. It feels like what they're doing there is they're making it so it's less about playing the game and more about playing the matchup. Like, did I happen to run into a deck with Mobius and I made the mistake of playing cost reduction? Guess I lose. And that's never fun. That's like, I think the issue with this is like, it shuts down so much stuff that it really turns it into a queue simulator rather than my opponent making plays to like beat my deck. They play a card that invalidates my deck. And I think that's going to get old really quickly for people.
Talk about feels bad. I just can't play half my deck now.
Yeah, like it takes you a long time to get the cards. People have cool splits. Like the Snap, I think, encourages people to get invested in their specific deck more than almost any other card game with how they do the splits and stuff and how much people like that. And now this is saying, oh, your favorite discard deck, or in like my case, like I'm like one card off a full inked Sarah deck. Well, guess it sucks to be you. Guess you better start running Rogue, because otherwise you're gonna have a really bad time. And then the Rogue thing's gonna be even funnier because then you're just shifting over who's having a really bad time, because they're not gonna have a very good time when their Mobius gets rogued on turn 3. I'm just really not looking forward to what the card is going to do to the game. It really feels like this month is the month where, because
we're all going to have a bad time.
Yeah, we're going to have a bad time together.
I might not. I mean, so we all have the card we're invested in. Lee's got Galactus. I've got Lockjaw. It's the perfect card for Lockjaw.
Yeah, Lockjaw doesn't get hit by this very hard, right? It's really just wave, and like you're not often trying to wave things out usually, right? You're usually trying to use that wave.
We cut wave because everyone else is running waves. So you Mobius, right? And then your Lockjaw is how you cheat things out, and that doesn't really manipulate card cost.
Yeah,
so...
Lockjaw, Electro, Shuri stuff. Basically, it's exactly what you said earlier, Blue. This card is going to encourage very linear game plans that don't care about cost reduction. So Shuri's a great example for everybody who loves the Shuri deck. Expect to see a lot more of that. Lockjaw's another good one, and then Electro Ramp I think is still going to be really, really good because Electro doesn't care about Mobius because you're getting extra energy. You're not cheating stuff out, and you can still use Wave in the games when they don't have Mobius. Hell, they'll probably run Mobius themselves in place of Jeff or something, just to be able to do the silly Mobius into Wave and to slam something out, maybe Odin it. Like
Shuri will like this card too.
Oh yeah, Shuri's gonna love this because Shuri's already a good deck.
Shuri needed a buff, so
Yeah, because it wasn't enough that Shuri was one of the cards or one of the decks that they're kind of pushing indirectly, both from Loki being such a big part of the meta, but also the impact Loki has had on the meta has drastically reduced the amount of Shang-Chi being ran, because Loki decks don't run Shang-Chi because it's bad in the mirror, because then you get your Collector, your Angela shanged, and you don't get to use it yourself. So they all started cutting it, and that's because they're such a big part of the meta, it's like, I mean, I can't recall a time when there's been less Shang-Chi around.
It's true. Well, so we got our wish, monkey's paw style wish.
It's good for Lockjaw too, right? Because Shang was kind of annoying versus Lockjaw sometimes.
I think I'd rather play against Shang than this nonsense.
Oh, for sure. That's not even a question. It's just it's like a slight little benefit. If you cheat out 2 big things in your draw lane, you're not as scared anymore. You have 1 mana ham again, and honestly, 1 mana ham's been kind of nice.
1 mana ham's pretty good. It's amazing it released the way it did.
It was pretty crazy.
So talking about upgrades, the variant shop has been receiving some upgrades over the past couple months. And one of those upgrades was that they have 2 more slots, so now you get 8 variants to select from every night at reset instead of 6. And they also started prioritizing when new variants get added to Snap. You are more likely to see those in your shop, so you can get them as they release. And this week, or earlier this week rather, for 3 nights, there was a Marvel Snap First shop takeover, where all the variants in the shop were Dan Hipp variants. And everyone loves Dan Hipp. Well, not everyone, but I think most people do. I love the Dan Hipp variants. I think everyone here is fans to some degree, some more than others. But, also to coincide with the shop, a lot of new Dan Hipp variants were released for some very anticipated characters like Dracula, Galactus, Infinite, Carnage,
Kitty
Venom,
Pride. There were a lot.
Yeah,
there
Kitty
were
Pride.
There was a lot.
There were like 15 of them or something. There were a ton.
There were
like 2 days of Dan Hipp releases, and I was pretty excited for this. Like I pulled it up on stream a few times. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm saving my gold because with the new shop system, right? We've been having the variants shown on release, and after going through months of the old awful shop system, where it was like, well, you just kind of hope a variant shows up for the card you want, especially a new release. Sometimes it would take like months to get a variant for, especially those new releases.
It took me a year to get the Kim Jacinto Shang-Chi. I finally got it.
It took me like 9 months to get the Dan Hipp Bast. I wanted that since day one. And so I think this is a cool, a neat kind of thing they did. I mean, I think it was pretty cool. And I got to see all the new Dan Hipp variants. I didn't buy them all, but, you know, I got a couple. I got the Dracula, I got Infinite. I know, Nate, you got a bunch of them.
Oh, I got a whole mess of them, yeah.
Did you buy out the whole store?
No.
Okay.
But
I buy out, like,
I bought
7 of 8.
I think the most I got was on the day one. And I got lucky, I suppose, because most of mine were new. I know not everyone had the same experience, which I'll talk about in just a second, but like most of mine were new.
Mine were all new. Yours were all new. Everyone all got new ones, right?
I have a ton. Totally. I have a ton of Dan Hipp ones, and so I think there was a very good chance that mine were going to be new. But like, and so yeah, I on day one, like I got Venom and Carnage and Kitty Pride and Deathlock, and you know, like they were all good. And they were all new. And then I see some people got like almost none. I think Zombies, you only got a couple, right?
Yeah, the first day it was 1. It was I got more on my alt than I got on my main, and I have a ton on my main. I probably have like 30 or 40 Dan Hipps. I have a ton of Dan Hipps.
Even the people, there were some people that were really unhappy about this, and I think while it's cute that they have the ability to like push stuff to our shop and prioritize it, they made a scenario where not everyone had the same experience, and there were a lot of feels bad. Like people really wanted, even in chat I saw like, right, Armorn wanted the Galactus and didn't get offered it.
Yeah, and I know a few people in that boat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I bought that one too. Yeah, and so it was just bizarre because they're like, yeah, shop takeover, new Dan Hipp, like all the Dan Hipp, which is rad, except some people got all the new stuff and some people got offered a bunch of old Dan Hipp stuff. And it's like, oh, well, what about me? And so it just, there was not, the player experience was widely varied across the board, which resulted in a lot of feels bad. So, I mean, I suppose I was lucky that I spent so much on day one that I saved so that I could buy like one card on day 2, and I got Shuri on day 2 because I was just trying to make an all Dan Hipp deck, and it was like Galactus was like the closest thing that I could do. I wanted the Dracula and the Hell Cow, but like I ran out of money.
Yeah, no, it's expensive, and I will say, so like I saw someone made like a neat suggestion that I thought was cool, where it was like, so the shop takeover thing's really cool. I think the idea of featuring one artist for like 2 days or something where it's just their variant, that's super cool, and that's something I think they should do more of. I think there was a bit of an oversight in how they did it this week, where it was like, for me, it was like literally just a worse experience, because with how the new shop has worked, since the new Dan Hipps were new, they would have been guaranteed to show up for me, right? So I would have seen them, had a chance to get any of the ones I wanted, and then, you know, went on with my business. And the way they could have fixed this, very simply, is either do it later in the week, you know, give people, you know, the day or two after new variants come out, get new variants they want, and then say, hey, for the next 2 days, we're doing the Dan Hipp thing. Or just make it so that the variants are prioritized when they're new during this Dan Hipp thing. And I think that was really just a simple oversight that they didn't think about that, or they didn't think about the implementation. Or maybe they did think about it, and maybe this wasn't an intended behavior. Bugs definitely have happened in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if the fact that people got entirely random ones, where some people get all new ones and other people get like one, or I saw some people with none. That I feel like that is either an oversight or a unintended experience, and I hope they change it. But people really love this. You know, the Dan Hipp ones, they're like the people's variant. They're all 700. People like collecting them. There are a ton of them. So like Nate mentioned, you can try and build the deck out of them. Like I have a Devil Dino deck that's like that. And I was really bummed about this in particular because I got the Dan Hipp Hip Monkey because I knew these ones were coming out, and I was like, oh, if I get Dan Hipp Iceman and Kitty, I can have like a full Dan Hipp bounce deck. And I mean, it's not the best version of Bounce, right? There's no Dan Hipp Angela, but it's still very functional, and you know, it's cool. It's a fun thing to do. And now, you know, I just have to wait and keep an eye out to see if those variants ever show up again. And like Blue and Nate mentioned, like sometimes you wait like months on months for a specific one to show up, and it's stupid. Like I wanted to give them money for something, and they're actively making it harder for me to do so. It's like, why?
The only other thing that I would mention, I think would make it great, and I think we talked about this pre-show, would be that if they're going to do an artist spotlight like this, they could discount them. That would be rad, because like
that was one thing someone suggested.
If they were a little bit cheaper, like they don't have to make them like, you know, I want to pay Dan Hipp and all that, whatever. I have no sympathy.
They don't even get paid for.
Nah, well, I don't. I think that the way that it works personally is that the artists don't get paid when they're reusing art that was previously like a comic book cover. But if
they get paid for the art, right? Like Dan Hipp gets commissioned to do these, so he gets paid that way. But like, there's no when they do like a Dan Hipp bundle.
Oh no, Dan Hipp's not getting money. No,
they're not getting any of that money. That's going all straight business.
Yeah, the artists
get money from the original stuff they're doing.
What
of course
we heard on Twitter from oh gosh, now I can't think of it. Who's the artist that everybody loves that does the
Brienne, right?
No, the other one that has the Invisible Woman and the Carnage and the Artgerm. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of those are all alternate covers for comic books. And Artgerm posted on Twitter that like, it's because someone had said like, hey, I got this rad Marvel Snap Artgerm variant. And Artgerm, I think, you know, you're awesome. I hope that you got some money for this. And he's like, yeah, I don't get a penny for this. Like, but it's because that it was a comic book cover and they're reusing it. So Marvel has the rights. So but if they're commissioning Dan Hipp, you know, specifically for new art for these cards, like he's making some money. But
he's making some money, yeah.
But like, and so I'm not rushing off to defend the $1 million company, whatever. But like, I think that if they were going to do like, hey, cool, all Dan Hipp for 2 days or 3 days or whatever it was,
make them 500.
Make them 500. You know, and then I would have bought out.
Be super cool.
I would have bought out the shop. Like there were ones that I wanted that I had to.
I think Nate, the problem is that how many tweets did you count? Zombies.
Oh, I hate it. You Snap players ruined it for everybody.
Anyway, and that's why I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. They're never gonna do.
Because people bought it anyway.
Already are buying out the shop at 700 now. Maybe if it's, you know, an artist who has a bunch of 1200s like Artgerm or Rian Gonzalez or whatever, maybe you're not going to see quite as much of that. Or if you are, God help us. But like it's a great concept, and I think it would encourage more people to like go for these type of things, especially with that, you know, little punch card for the tokens. But they just don't have any incentive, right? Like I think this was just to test the waters to see how people like this kind of thing, and people really like this kind of thing, and people spent a bunch of money with this kind of thing. So it's like, why would they ever make it cheaper to do that when like
I'm curious how successful this was. So I bought two. I bought Dracula and Infinite. That's it.
Oh God, I'll count mine and go back to me later.
All right, we'll go to you last, Nate, since you probably take the crown on this one. How many Dan Hipp variants did you buy this week, SafetyBlade?
0 at this point.
0. You spent it all on your Safety Second account?
Yeah, I have the debris Dan Hipp in my shop, so maybe that will change before the.
Didn't you just buy another debris?
The Scotty Young one. Did you not buy it?
I ended up holding strong.
I'm good.
I'm proud. Decisions.
Good for you. So right away, you know, 0 Dan Hipps. Maybe if they were 500, Safety would have taken the plunge on one of them.
Yes, I would have bought one for 500.
Okay, there you go. See, Mr. Second Dinner, if you're listening, you would have had an extra sale if there was a little incentive there. Lee, how many Dan Hipp variants did you get this week?
I only bought the Galactus one, nothing else.
I like the consistency. The
Yeah,
answer. I'm happy it showed up for you because
I am too, because a lot of people didn't get it, and people still haven't gotten it, surprisingly. So
I passed on it. It was in mine. I didn't get it.
That's the only one that I'm gonna be collecting. Like, doesn't matter the artist.
Yeah,
Galactus.
You have them all, right?
I do.
You have all the Galactus ones.
Yeah.
It's fun to do that for a card you really like. Just go after the different art. And one thing, someone, I don't know who brought this up, but someone said they should port that Hearthstone feature where you remember when they used to make it so you always had to select a hero from your skins, but eventually they made it so you could
the random one.
Yeah, the random selection through your favorites or whatever. Snap's gonna do that at some point.
I hope
at least
so.
They should.
Because I was saying that months ago that they should do it with the amount of variants that we have.
Yeah, because like people just pick one right now and they use it, right? But like I have 2 different Jeffs I really like, or even 3. Like I would like to use them, but I'm not gonna go and swap my Jeff out all the time. It's just needless work. Like just. If you want people to buy more than one variant, which I'm sure they do, just give us a little toggle where it's like it's a quality of life thing, and I'm sure they will add that at some point because I want to see the art for all these cards I have. Yeah. It's just I'm not gonna.
I think they will. It's
change
in their best interest to do it anyways. It also will incentivize people to buy more stuff, right? It's like
exactly
I can just see it.
It's a win-win. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
How many did you buy, Zombies?
1. I'm pretty sure I only bought 1 because I like the Hell Cow, but fortunately Hell Cow's not that playable, and I have the Pixel. The only new ones I saw were Scarlet Witch, who I have 2 great variants for, the Art Germ and the Rian Gonzalez. Dracula, which it's the best Dracula. I was waiting for that one for a while. Hell Cow. There might have been one other one, but like.
Did you buy the Kitty Pride?
I didn't get the Kitty Pride. That was only on my alt. I would have bought the Kitty Pride and the Iceman for the bounce deck. They just didn't show them to me. And a lot of people hypothesized, well, you know, the shop still prioritizes new variants, right? So once the Dan Hipp rush ends, you should have them show up. And a few new ones did show up the following day, but none of them were the new Dan Hipps I missed. And then the day after, it was all repeats, old ones. And it's just like, oh, bummer. So yeah, only 1 for me.
Yeah, well... I bought 5.
That's not even that bad.
And I would have bought the day before it started. I bought Abomination, and so it showed up, and I wanted it because I've been playing it in that stupid Living Tribunal deck. And it was cute, and I was like, I'll take it. And then the next day I bought Venom, Carnage, Kitty Pride, Galactus, and Deathlock all in the same day, and I was like, yep, I'm broke.
So your
and then the next day
spending on Snap got scrutinized as a result, huh?
It did. And then the next day I bought Shuri. I saved, like I had like 900 gold left, and I was like, well, I'll save to see what shows up tomorrow. And there was awesome stuff the next day because it showed up Sarah and Surfer, Iceman, Scarlet Witch, Dracula, Hellcow, and Shuri. And I wanted all of them. And I just bought the Shuri because it would fit into one of my, like, I could play it in like a Galactus deck if I really wanted to, if I wanted to throw in Nimrod or whatever. But I really wanted some of the other ones. I just I ran out of money. So I'll, someday in the future, hopefully. But God, I really love his stuff. Some of it you can tell, like some of it's amazing and some of it's not quite as amazing. But I really like the idea, I've been saying it for ages, of playing a deck with all the same artist. And Dan Hipp's style is so distinct, and it actually lends really well to splitting the cards, because when they have a different background, like his art really stands out well on a foil type whatever background. And so it really makes me want to do them. Now, I wanted to do the bounce thing as well. The Kitty Pride, I think, is amazing because it's the classic blue costume with Lockheed in it. Like, it's just too good to pass up. And the Venom and Carnage were amazing. Like, and I already had Wolverine and Killmonger. It was like, all right, well, I guess we're playing Destroy. I don't even really like it a whole lot. It's missing a couple of the cards to make it decent, but like, I have most of a decent Destroy deck already, so I put together a graphic with all my Dan Hipp.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
All right, I'll put up on the screen. I have a lot. It's not quite enough to make like a full deck, but it's close. It's really close.
And I know Zombies is very close to doing Bounce as a full Dan Hipp deck as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to that one too.
Oh wow, that's a lot, Nate.
It's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's too small. You can't see them all, but there's a lot.
Wow, look at you.
It's cool because I didn't do anything fancy. You can search in the PC client now by artists, so I just typed in Dan Hipp and they all showed up. It was great.
Nice.
So it's just a couple of screenshots mashed together, but
got a lot of good ones there.
Yeah, his art's cool, and I usually like the dark stuff. I like the Venoms and the Nulls.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing I usually like. So
I don't like the babies. I don't like that cutesy stuff, but I like these. These are amazing. I don't know. Yeah. I just love it. I eat it up. But yeah, some people had a really bad experience. Almost comically in some cases. I think. Yeah. But I don't want to say that it doesn't feel bad, because for some people that were really wanting, like, honestly, I've been waiting for the Venom and Carnage ones for ages because I think they're super cool, and if they didn't show up I would have been bummed too. So I don't know. But yeah, everyone had a different experience. It's just odd. It's just funny how they can take the most like innocuous thing and still mess it up.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, the Marvel Snap slogan.
Can you guys believe that it's what the PC launch was a month ago? It was about a month ago, right? Little over a month ago.
Yeah, about a month ago.
It's crazy how much has changed. So since we did so good on time, I'm gonna add a special bonus topic that I didn't have in the agenda, and I'm gonna be looking at safety and zombies and Lee for this one here. So we're coming off the back of several weeks of Loki, a very narrow meta. We're all buying Mobius come Monday. What are you guys gonna be playing? Do you think it's just gonna be the same decks with Mobius in it, or do you have any potential? I don't want to say meta breakers, but something that might be able to stand at least toe to toe with the established players in this meta. So safety, what's your pick for next week post Mobius to play? Hot take.
To play, like the best deck to play, or the one I will play? Because I will play anything. That's the problem.
What would you recommend? Do you think there's going to be anything that could compete?
Shuri Red Skull. You should be.
But that's already competing. So you're just going to see good decks include Mobius and get better.
That's the deck. That'll be the deck next week. And it's the Brood deck.
Oh
yeah, Brood Patriot.
I will play the Brood deck. I'm going to drop everyone's favorite 5 energy 7 power card Legion from my version for Mobius, but I will be playing the Brood deck.
Absman Brood. Is that just the better Cerebro 5? Like, people are playing Cerebro 5 because it goes wide.
Yes.
Like, that's just the better. That's just the same game plan, but better, right?
Yeah, because
Cerebro 5
Cerebro.
It's got good stats, guys.
It's flash in the pan, and it's entirely meta dependent why that deck exists. So,
because
yes,
Cerebro's
you can play it right now. You can play it right now. Yes, you can play it.
Shuri, all right. So you heard it here. SafetyBlade recommends Shuri Red Skull as a post Mobius. The Sauron version or the Kitty Angela version?
Only Sauron. The Kitty Angela version is a meme to me still.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Anyone who likes that deck is better. I would strongly say that you are wrong, unfortunately.
So
but
is
Sauron... that deck in particular might be a lot better thanks to Mobius, because the way that deck was wave. So that one will be a lot better. But the Sauron deck is just so much better. That deck is still one of the best decks in the game right now.
Isn't Sauron Mobius anti-synergistic? I guess not, because you won't play it if
well, they still run armor, right? Like, it's because of the curve
you play it in the same spot.
You don't have a curve. Like, you're not going to play Mobius. You're usually not going to find time to play Mobius on 4, 5, or 6. So it's like you get it on turn 2 or you don't. And that's what they do with armor, right? Like, they all run armor still, even though there's anti-synergy.
So I talk about Shuri Red Skull on stream a lot because other people, a lot of the top players are actually playing this deck, and they pretend they're playing other decks because I play them, they're playing this. But I've just sent you a copy of the Sauron deck is still the best. It's like one of the best decks in the game.
And you're gonna cut.
It's brain
and you're
dead.
gonna.
I'm gonna drop Nebula from my version. That's probably what I'm gonna cut. I can still play Enchantress then. Potentially, I just cut Enchantress.
So Enchantress, you could potentially play like if you don't get your Sauron to like fix your Typhoid Mary or whatever, or Red Skull.
Yeah, or your Red Skull.
It's also really good into the decks that you bad into as well, like ones that go wide and stuff like that. You can just destroy decks.
Good versus Cerebro.
All right, so Shuri Red Skull with Mobius, very exciting.
And Brood
and Brood Absman, also exciting.
Exhilarating.
Zombies, what sayest you? Do you have any deck that you think will both be interesting and maybe meta compatible?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to do is put Mobius in a Loki deck just to make people mad and show how the deck is still really good. But then when I actually want to enjoy playing the game, I will probably switch to... I think it's going to be great in Ramp. I think being able to do the Mobius Wave Odin shenanigans is going to be quite fun. It's also going to improve, I think, the Galactus version of the deck, because you'll be able to go Mobius Wave. If your opponent doesn't have their own Mobius, well, they're going to have a lot harder time stopping Galactus than they normally do. So I think that's going to be real good. And then the spicy one of the bunch is probably going to be doing a Sarah Surfer with everyone's favorite tech card Rogue. And hey, maybe we'll even throw in Loki. Because, hey, it's a 3-drop, and, you can have a backup plan. If you don't draw your Sarah or you don't draw your Surfer, just go Loki, throw in Snowguard as another little bonus for some location control.
You're canceled.
Call it a deck.
Lee, are you going to run this in your Galactus?
I thought about trying it just for funsies.
Probably not bad, honestly.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to test out with it, but apart from that, I haven't really given it much thought of what I'm going to do with Mobius.
Are you planning on running it, Nate?
Yeah, why not? I would just toss it into things and see how it goes. I mean,
yeah,
it's at nothing else, right? It's a River Croc. It's a 2/3, so that messes with your opponent a little bit. So I'll try it out. I mean, I'll just throw it in whatever. So I have this brilliant plan that's like whatever Safety's playing, we just copy Safety's homework, and that usually works out pretty well. So
that's my specialty. I take the SafetyBlade deck and I change one card, and then it's a new original. It's been working. It's been working for me for months.
I've net decked zombies and Safety more times than I care to admit. So that story checks out. Yeah, I'm gonna just be throwing it in Lockjaw because, I think it's just gonna be really annoying. I don't know if that'll be good, but I mean, I kind of just gonna take a wait and see. I think that whatever happens, may be unexpected or it may be predictable. And then we have an OTA on Thursday where I think that some of these Loki decks that are serviceable into Loki, I fear gets hit. And I don't think Loki gets touched until October. So it's kind of like see you in a few weeks, guys, kind of a deal, which is really sad because, I mean, it really has felt like a chore to do my dailies this week. And I fear that next week it will largely feel the same.
Or worse.
Or worse.
If you really want to know what I'm actually going to play next week, it's probably be whatever gets me through my tickets as quickly as possible, and then Monster Hunter Now. So that's that's the actual reality. I agree.
We're all cheating on Snap this month, right? And it's not just us, right? Like I've seen a growing sentiment from a lot of the other people who stream this game a ton, who are just like, I'm playing less. I remember the other day, so Blue mentioned I've been playing a bunch of Hollow Knight. Like I start up, I maybe get through an hour of Snap if I'm lucky. And then I'm like, all right, we're going to play a different game that's actually more fun. And I rated Dexter the other day, who was playing Lies of P, which is a cool, roguelike or Souls-like game. And he was like, hey, how you enjoying the Marvel Snap meta? And I'm like, well, it's not that great, but the Hollow Knight meta is pretty good. And it's just the more this goes on, the more you're seeing people just stopping streaming the game. Because, the fun of Snap is in having to think about how your games play out, getting to build different decks and all that stuff. And Loki's just suffocating that right now. Like the build variety and things you can try and build, it really feels like your collection's rather limited, even for those of us who have most, if not all, of the cards in the game. It's like you feel very constrained in terms of what you can actually play if you want to have a reasonable chance at actually not losing games. And it's not great. Every time that's happened in the past, it's been not a great thing, and it's unfortunate because like they were kind of doing pretty well for a while. This is the first episode I think in a while where our complaints about the game are not about the economy, it's about the game balance. Like in the past, like it was very different, right? Like we would always say, hey, we may have our issues with the economy, but we really like the game, and you notice we're not complaining about the game because the game's very fun. So like they've been on a hot streak for a bit, and so maybe this was due to happen. Everybody messes up sometimes, and they had a relatively decent run after they finally nerfed Shuri, right? Like beginning of the year was a little rough, Zabu into Thanos into Shuri, but after Shuri, I mean, yeah, there were moments that weren't as good as others, but brutal. Yeah, but I don't think it was nearly as bad as like Shuri, because like it lasted a while, but like it didn't last as long as Shuri did, where Shuri, they had to adjust Red Skull like 3 different times before they finally like, all right, we're finally going to touch Shuri. High Evo did take a bit too. They weren't the fastest, but I found that at least a bit more enjoyable than like Shuri and Zabu. But Loki's right up there. Like this is easily for me the least I've enjoyed and the least I've played the game since the Zabu season, and the Zabu season is all-time worst because at least in this you have a little bit of variety, even though it kind of sucks. Like you're limited into like a handful of stuff, and I don't particularly enjoy the stuff that is like I'm not a Shuri gamer. High Evo is probably my favorite of the bunch, but it just gets repetitive.
I think this is worse than Zabu. I think Zabu felt worse because the way the ladder worked and how much sweatier the game was.
But and the lack of options, right? Because like in Zabu, everything was a mirror match. Like right now, in spite of its popularity, not everything is a Loki mirror match. But the effect it is having on, or at least that's my experience, but the effect, it's still super prevalent. But the effect it's having on the game in terms of limiting the other decks that I see, like it's literally just Loki, High Evo, Ramp, and that's usually it for me. Maybe an occasional Shuri, but I really don't see that much of it, at least in my experience, even though I know it's around. But it's like those are the 4, and maybe once in a blue moon you get someone doing like a brew, like a run into Cleanup who's still screwing around with his Pool 2 Zoo, which mad props to that man for being in like the top 500 with his Pool 2 Zoo decks. Like I love how dedicated to the cause he is, not even putting in Kitty Pride because he wants it to be a Pool 2 Zoo deck. And he beat me earlier today when I was playing Loki with that, or no, I think it was Ravonna. But still, the point stands. Like I respect people who are trying to make that work, but for me, it's just kind of an exercise in frustration. I just don't like. I hate the Loki experience of playing with and against Loki, and I'm not particularly fond of the other decks it is encouraging people to play. So it's just like, game's just not as fun. It's that simple to me.
Well, guys, we had fears that with 5 participants, we would go on for 12 hours, but this has been one of our most focused and contained episodes yet. So
I'm impressed.
I want to thank our guests, SafetyBlade and LeeAcer. I've put their socials in the chat. You should check out their content. And Zombies and Nate, thank you so much for doing the show with me and being a constant source of inspiration and encouragement. Even when the game is not at its best, you still help me to be. So I appreciate you both. And I've put your socials in the chat also. I think that if for those that are listening thought maybe the tone of the conversation was a little bit on the negative side, I think that we're passionate about the game and we want to see it be better, and we think it can be better and should be, and it just comes from a place of love, and that's us keeping it Cosmo. So till next time, hopefully we'll have some more positive news to speak of. Maybe we'll be surprised with the OTA. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised with Mobius. We can be cautiously optimistic, and hopefully that optimism will be rewarded, not punished. Till next time, thank you so much. Take care, all.
Keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Enough said, bub.